embarking on a journey to unravel the mysteries of the cosmos and the truths of life. Today we set forth on a spiritual adventure to delve into the profound wisdom of the 25th chapter of the Tao Te Ching. This chapter is not only the essence of Taoist philosophy, but also the key to understanding the core concept of Tao. If you were to ask me where to begin in exploring Taoist thought, I would point you to this very chapter without hesitation. It is here that the word Tao is first endowed with profound meaning, signifying more than just a name but an exploration of the fundamental principles of the universe. Let us start by reciting the original text to experience the wisdom that transcends time and space. First, let us recite the entire original text. There is something formed of the mixture of all things, existing before heaven and earth, tranquil and vast, standing alone and unchanging, going around and never failing. It can be considered the mother of all things. I do not know its name, so I style it as Tao, and I force it to be called great. The great leaves, the far reaches, and the far reaches return. Therefore, Tao is great, heaven is great, earth is great, and humans are also great. In the realm, there are four greats, and humans dwell in one of them. Humans follow the earth follows heaven, heaven follows Tao, and Tao follows what is natural. We already know that the momentum of this chapter is very grand. Let us first state its content in plain language before delving into further discussion. There is something integrated and undifferentiated that existed before the emergence of heaven and earth, silent and empty, formless and shadowy, standing alone and unchanging, circulating and never ceasing. It can serve as the mother of heaven and earth. I do not know its name, so I reluctantly call it Tao. Reluctantly, I name it as vast. It is boundless and endlessly circulating without end and stretching far and returning to the source. Thus, Tao is vast, heaven is vast, earth is vast, and humans are vast. There are four vastnesses in existence, and humans are one of them. Humans emulate the earth emulates heaven, heaven emulates Tao, and Tao emulates its own natural state. This chapter is worth careful study. In this episode, we will first look at the first part. Then, this beginning speaks of something integrated and undifferentiated, and the character mixed is worth noting. It has appeared twice before, indicating what? The mix is a state that has not yet been differentiated. What draws your attention next is the phrase before heaven and earth, existing earlier than heaven and earth. The most vast and ancient existence known to humans is heaven and earth. With heaven and earth, there are then all things. However, this thing actually predates heaven and earth. So, what is this about? Why bring this thing out? Laozi's meaning is that no matter how vast and ancient heaven and earth are, they are still full of changes, which means they have a beginning but no end. So heaven and earth also need a source. Otherwise, when you ask where heaven and earth come from, you cannot get an explanation. You cannot say that heaven and earth have existed since ancient times, for what has existed since ancient times is eternal and unchanging. Therefore, Laozi must imagine that there must be something that serves as the origin and the destination. Next, Laozi mentions two terms, extremely quiet and empty and formless. Silence means no one is listening, and formlessness means no one is seeing. Or even if one tries to see, they cannot see. But you say humans do not exist at all, so who is there to listen or to see? So do not forget that in that primitive state, it is just a description to let you know that it transcends everything above. The next two sentences are key. The first sentence, standing alone and unchanging, represents its singular existence, independent. It is also an eternal existence because it does not change. The second sentence, circulating and never failing. What does this indicate? It indicates its universal presence everywhere, circulating and never stopping. Thus, It is said to be independent and unchanging, meaning that this Tao transcends all things without any change. Speaking of transcendence, it is really necessary to refer to Western perspectives. The ancient Greek Plato once said that transcendence means not changing with the changes of all things. This is transcendence. So Laozi's Tao is unique and unchanging. The word unchanging represents no change, so what else could it be but transcendent? The second phrase, circulating and never failing, means that it is present everywhere, reaching every corner, and thus omnipresent. What does this indicate? It possesses an immanent nature, existing within all things. All things are indispensable to it. Without the Tao, all things would not know how to come into being. Therefore, on one hand, the Tao has transcendence because it is not affected by the changes of all things and remains forever unchanged. On the other hand, it has immanence or inwardness, which is quite remarkable. To say that the Tao is transcendent is because it is not influenced by the changes of all things and remains eternally unchanging. To say that it is immanent means that it resides within all things, and this dual characteristic is the most important aspect of the Tao that we should understand. Hence, the reason why Laozi's philosophy is so brilliant and precise lies here. He is able to grasp both transcendence and immanence. As for a certain term, we need to correct it. Wang Bai's version states can be considered the mother of the world, but I'm afraid that in the Silk manuscripts, both the A and B versions say can be considered the mother of heaven and earth. To be honest, heaven and earth's mother is more reasonable, since the first sentence says before heaven and earth, and here it says can be considered the mother of heaven and earth. They both refer to heaven and earth. Suddenly introducing the term world might not clearly represent what is meant. All things we know must exist within heaven and earth, so heaven and earth must be the earliest existence. However, what exists even before heaven and earth is the Tao. Therefore, speaking of heaven and earth includes all subsequent things. Then Laozi admits, I do not know its name, because humans usually name things based on phenomena we see before us. But I'm sorry, the Tao cannot be a phenomenon we face. This is a bit like a poem by Su Dongpa, who said, from side to side, it forms a ridge. From end to end, it forms a peak. Near and far, high and low, all different. I do not recognize the true face of Lushan, for I am in the mountain itself. We cannot see the mountain clearly because we are inside it. Hearing about the mountain might seem manageable. Today is not a problem. You can take a plane and see the mountain from above. However, even when you are in the air, you are still within the Tao, so it is simply impossible to name it. So, it is reluctantly called Tao. Why is it called Tao? The character Tao has the radical for walk, indicating movement. It implies that the existence of all things is in motion and change, as if there is a head leading the way. Thus, it is fitting to call this character the origin and destination of all things in the universe. Hence, it is referred to as Tao. There is a character here, reluctantly, with the character strong. Is there really this character? To be honest, in Han Fizi, which is from the late Warring States period, when interpreting Laozi, it directly states, reluctantly it is called Tao. There is a strong, which is actually reluctant. So later it says, reluctantly name it as great, which contains two strong characters representing reluctance. So when you hear Tao, think of great. These two should be connected because humans believe that anything worthy of worship and admiration must have the characteristic of greatness, vast without external boundaries. Then it continues with 3 sentences, great, event, return. It is so great that what happens? It circulates without cease, flowing everywhere, and after flowing everywhere and being completely filled, it must return to the source. So we see that all things already exist, and the changes of all things must return to the source. Therefore, Laozi also said before, good service, all return to their roots. We will later read, all things return to their roots as the movement of Tao. This is the way of Tao's activity, and the reason is right here. So here are three characters. Great is far, far, say return. These three sentences are highly valued. There is a Taoist scholar, Mr. Jiang Shi, who says that all of Laozi's philosophy is within these three sentences. Great is far, far, say return. However, his interpretation is quite special because he completely follows Han Fizi's claim that Laozi's book is used to explain political issues. So how does he interpret these three sentences? He says that since Tao is so great, what should we do? It slowly moves away, as if the correct governance should be by those who understand Tao, but they are gone, moved away, and seen as far away. After moving far, it will eventually return to the right path. So he believes that the purpose of Laozi's writing is to use sages as representatives to bring everything back to the right path. His view is also interesting and worth considering. So here we see, there is no need to discuss it in terms of politics. In fact, what Laozi speaks of, the pursuit of the essence of all things in the real world, can be clearly explained. The universe and all things, this Tao, is so great because it exists forever, and it is through it that heaven, earth, and all subsequent things appear. So it is also omnipresent, which means on one hand, it has transcendence. It never changes, it stands alone and unchanging. On the other hand, it has immanent nature. It is different from all things, but it is within all things, and all things come from Tao. If there is no Tao, all things simply could not exist, which is called circulating without failure. These two characteristics are very key. How to say it? Many Western scholars, when they study philosophy and see the translated version of Laozi, often feel a deep resonance. Why? Because Tao has transcendence and immanence. Westerners, from ancient Greece, have believed that the origin and destination of the universe and all things must be the same root. No matter what name you give it, it is the same thing, and this thing must have a dual character, which is the same as what is said here, transcendence and immanence. On the one hand, it transcends all things and does not change with the changes of all things. On the other hand, it has immanence, which means it is omnipresent. The term omnipresent is a very important term in Zhuangzi. Someone asked Zhuangzi where Tao is, and his answer was omnipresent. This is the standard immanence of Tao. So the great Western philosophers, from ancient Greece all the way to Kant and Hegel, all believe that transcendence and immanence are two aspects that we must consider simultaneously in understanding the essence of the universe and all things. So for Laozi, there is no issue of idealism or materialism. He grasps the most fundamental situation. Everything comes from Tao, and in the end, returns to Tao. As the spirit of all things, humans have an ability, which is that they can understand this point. After understanding this point, they must learn, because humans are within Tao, so of course, they must emulate Tao. Those who truly succeed in emulating are the sages. They can understand Tao, and after understanding Tao, they can get rid of unnecessary troubles and worries. Because the troubles of the world come from self-examination, because humans have relative reason and desires, and often seek troubles for themselves. The judgments and attachments made to facts and values are all relative. So in this chapter, we first see the first half, how Tao appears. What we need to remember is that Laozi's Tao has transcendence and also immanence. These 2 points, Tao, is transcendent because it allows heaven and earth and all things to appear, but it itself is not affected, which is the basic concept of Taoism. So later Zhuangzi will repeatedly emphasize that all things are changing, but Tao is not all things, Tao is within all things, and Tao is not disturbed. On the other hand, it is immanent within all things. This point is very clear. Only by understanding this can we understand the ancient Greek philosophy of the West and the issues explored by later Western philosophers about the most fundamental questions of the universe, including the concept of God, which also takes into account both transcendence and immanence. Finally, let's think about it. Maybe it's the first time we think about the two words transcendence and immanence, but don't forget that the human spirit also has such a role. I can transcend all things to think, and at the same time, my thinking cannot be separated from this world. Let's think about it. Can such a two-sided view give us some inspiration to make our thoughts more complete and profound? I would like to hear your opinions.